You're watching the New Stack Makers, a podcast for people who develop, deploy, and manage at-scale software. For more information and articles about at-scale technologies, please visit thenewstack.io. Now enjoy the show. James Governor, how are you, sir?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
You know, I said beforehand that you can say cut anytime you want in this interview, but you said, you know, for the natural flow of the conversation, you don't really want to say cut. But I just want to say it's okay to say cut if you want to say cut. We won't stop the recording, but you can say cut.
But at any given time.
Any given time, you can say cut.
Okay.
And if you feel like running around the room at any time, you can do that too.
I got you. Yeah. Both of these things, you wait and see.
So I'm holding this book, Progressive Delivery, by James Governor, Kim Harrison, Heidi Waterhouse, and Adam Zinman.
Yeah.
This is your book.
It is my book. It's a labor of love.
It's like, you know, the Redmond crew now have 2 books under their belt.
Well, Steve actually did write a couple.
He wrote more than one.
And I, in the very, very, very olden days, actually I contributed to a book about Web 2.0 patterns. So it's not my first book, but
this one feels like a piece of work that you'll really remember as a book that you really put together, though.
I think so. I got a piece of feedback today on that wonderful platform, LinkedIn.
Oh,
you might have heard of it.
Yes, I have.
So someone I greatly respect just said that they hadn't been able to put it down. And that's the thing that you see in reviews, you know, unputdownable or like, I was kind of emotional. So,
you know, if you can write a book that people don't want to put down, that's a good thing. You know what I will say is I got the online version of the book.
Yeah.
And I started using Kobo for it.
Okay.
You need the reader. You can't just read it like on a web page. It's a little bit more difficult.
Oh, I'm sure.
So I look forward to like taking one of these home.
Are you gonna?
I can give you $20 for it if you want.
I think you could take a book.
Okay, thank you.
I think you could take a book. The cover is beautiful, I have to say. So look, IT Rev is an incredible publishing company. So Gene Kim, wrote the Phoenix Project, like Mr. DevOps, and so to be in that stable, he's got a new book about vibe coding that he wrote with Steve Yegi. To be in that stable is amazing. And honestly, the design, I see all these other books. You know, I look at business books in a slightly different way now. And none of them look as good as this book. Like, I don't know about the contents, but it looks amazing. That design is absolutely fantastic.
Technologies can create miracles and wonders with software, but without a user, none of that matters.
That's 100% correct.
I did start reading. It is engaging. I will say that. And I liked what you were saying about how really it's about the customers using the software more than anything. You can build something, right? But if the customer's like, what is this? You know, like they're not going to want to use it.
Yeah, well,
that's kind of the theory, right?
It is. And this gets back to, look, so Charity Majors, one of her comments that she makes is like, it doesn't matter if you have 5 nines if the user isn't happy.
Right.
Right. So what you're building really does need to be about the user. And I think too often in technology, we get overexcited about what we're building and we don't put the user first. And I think in this book, what we tried to do is to say, look, you know, and we think about DevOps, right? You've got dev and you've got ops.
Right.
But where's the third loop? Where is the user? And the feedback from the user about their experience of a digital product and service, how we can roll it out to them and basically give the right product to the right user at the right time.
Yeah, and I liked what I read this part about this concept of the concepts of physics that apply to progressive delivery. And this is the beginning of, where you present the main themes of the discussion, which I thought we would talk about, the 4 A's. And that's the framework that you use for progressive delivery. And you're right. The evolution of progressive delivery has been shaped by technological advances, much as physics has evolved to measure and manage forces of motion. I thought that was pretty cool.
Well, that's Adam Zinman. I'm not taking any credit for that. So Adam Zinman, he's amazing. Really enjoyed. So Adam, progressive delivery, I think any and it's interesting because look, the term has been, fairly widely adopted. People do use the term now. It's always amazing when somebody you didn't know, or you hear a presentation at an event or something, and someone talks about progressive delivery, and you're like, oh, people actually do use this term. But the thing about
it's no pun intended, but it's a flag you can mark in your career.
There you go. Yeah. So the thing with Adam that was interesting to me was I had been thinking, basically the whole idea began with rage and anger.
Oh.
Yeah, no. I mean, it was a good developer will occasionally rage code something.
Yes.
Something will annoy them so much they write their own.
Right.
For me, I had been to KubeCon, and I was so annoyed at the failure to provide any use cases for service mesh. They kept just saying Istio is good. I had this bee in my bonnet about how dumb it was that they were unable to talk about what you might be able to use that for. Then a couple of weeks later, I go and I meet a guy from Microsoft, Sam Guggenheimer, and he was talking about something that Microsoft had done back in the day, progressive experimentation. And what I realized that there were a whole bunch of things that we needed to bring together, really thinking about, again, putting the user first, being able to roll things out to a specific cohort of users before we rolled it out more broadly to have better experiences. I was like, you know what I want, and to my mind at least, some of the automation capabilities with service mesh, I was like, okay, here at least is a use case for this. And you have an idea like that. At that point, you're just someone dance, the old meme, someone's dancing crazy on a hill, just they look like an idiot. And then the second person that comes and dances with them on the hill.
Right.
And then suddenly everyone joins in.
Everyone's dancing.
So Adam Zimmern was the second person that made me not a crazy person on the hill. And he came along. And the physics stuff, that was something he wanted to add to the book.
Yeah, and so let me just give an intro here to the discussion about the 4As, because there's this concept of jerk. It's like when you're on a subway and you're holding the pole and the train kind of stops and jerks. That's the jerk, right? That's the physics. That's the motion, right? That happens. You're trying to eliminate that as much as possible, and so the goal is to help us measure and manage the technological jerks in our system. The 4As: abundance, autonomy, alignment, and automation. And then you go through like all these things that have led up to that and everything else. So how'd you come up with these 4As? Like maybe you could talk a little bit about them briefly each, starting with about abundance.
Yeah, well, I think from our perspective, one of the things about, you're going to come out and talk about, something like progressive delivery. You're immediately like, wait a minute, James, what are you smoking here? Because, we've got continuous delivery, and we've got this amazing work that the industry has done, that, individuals, I mentioned Gene, but, we could talk about, like Jez Humble. I think if we think about DevOps, we could talk about like Nicole Forsgren, the amazing work that she's done in terms of like measuring better outcomes for software delivery. If you're going to come out there and say progressive delivery, then you're going to have to think about what are we actually talking about? So if we think about CI/CD, those concepts really, they were pre-cloud.
Yeah.
And it really struck me when I was thinking about what we do differently today, that the cloud provides abundance in a way that enables us to do things we just could not otherwise have done. So if we're going to do, we talk about blue-green deployments. You literally originally had to have two completely separate pieces of infrastructure, sets of servers, storage, application, networking. You'd have two of those and do a cutover. Obviously, with virtualization, that began to break down some of those barriers.
Right.
But the idea of you would actually need to have two environments. What if you wanted to do 3 or 4? With the cloud, you can spin up as many instances as you want. And that abundance was not, it didn't exist in the world when some of these key concepts about building better software came out. So I was like, what was different when they wrote the book on continuous delivery? The cloud wasn't there. So abundance, I was really talking, and again, open source has completely changed our ability. If you had to constantly give Oracle every time you wanted to do anything with the database, you couldn't be. It's so much harder to experiment, to to
Yeah.
run experiments, to do. So yeah, abundance, it was like, that's the difference, is the cloud, open source, social have utterly changed our capability to collaborate and build software. And so yeah, that was where abundance came from.
Yeah, and it reminds me of the abundance that we saw when companies like Twitter first emerged, right? When they made they were using, they were using APIs to basically allow anyone to integrate, with that.
I wish
software.
they had have stayed on that path, by the way.
And I think a lot of us do. I do.
Good
Yeah.
times.
Yeah, and you saw it again with Docker, right? That was another time where there was an abundance of opportunity there.
100%.
And so now it's an interesting time though when you think about abundance, because it's not so easy to use GPUs. They're not like CPUs, right? It's not like this fungibility thing is so easy.
We thought about that a lot when we were writing the book, because we began the book and the concepts, it was certainly pre-GPT. So it was before this current mad wave of AI innovation, right?
Yeah.
And so we were quite aware writing the book, as we're talking about, you've got this access to resources. And this is something that RedMonk, my company, has spoken about over the years a lot, that, enabling developers, they're not having to ask for permission, there are fewer gatekeepers, but pretty clearly, one of the things is not necessarily or one of the things that the people think is not abundance would be GPUs. But on the other hand, what's more abundant than the absolutely absurd amounts of money we're spending on this? NVIDIA's share price is pretty abundant, right? And we look at that industry, and there are all sorts of questions. Maybe it's a bubble, but bubbles are sort of abundant. It's an excess of abundance. So yeah, look, what we're not saying is that you should forget resource constraints. However, we are arguing that there is an opportunity to use cloud and software abundance to do a better job of delivering software to users.
Well, I talked with Edith Harbaugh beforehand. I mentioned that to you before we started, that she mentioned you in terms of progressive delivery. But she talked about the bottlenecks that she has seen over the years. And, when back in 2014, hardly anyone was doing releases more than, most people were just doing them twice a year,
Absolutely.
And so then the releases started to accelerate. And now we're in this time where, the bottleneck is less about the compute capabilities that you have, but it's more about the developers that you can have do this work. But now the level, the floor is dropping on that, right?
Absolutely. And Edith, I think, understands this as well as anyone on the planet.
Yeah.
There's no doubt, I talk about, when you're casting around looking for ideas and things that make sense. Adam Zimmern worked at Launch Darkly when I originally discussed this with him. The idea of a platform that would enable you to run these experiments at scale, that was kind of foundational. And so, yeah, certainly Edith really understood, I think, how software delivery was changing. And yeah, I think that feature flags, feature management, absolutely key in being able to do something like progressive delivery.
So the second A in the 4 A's is autonomy, and it's described in one sentence. Autonomy is the ability of an individual to act independently from others.
Yeah, 100%. Now look, software development is a team sport, absolutely. But one of the things that we've seen again, and that is different in how the industry is working, is again, I discussed the developer not needing to ask for permission so much. Developers do their best work when they have autonomy, right? Humans do their best work when they have autonomy, when they're allowed to get on with the job at hand. And so if we think about what we delegate in terms of responsibility, and who is doing the work and making sure they have the autonomy to solve the problem, making sure that they have that they're in a position to, as I say, understand a user experience. That's one of the things that I think as an industry we've really moved ahead in terms of absolutely the ability of, and again, look at Amazon, the two-pizza team, right? It is a small autonomous team getting on with its work. And I think those are some of the, that's certainly not how it worked in the waterfall era. And so autonomy is a key concept, again, in terms of better software outcomes and having teams and individuals doing their best work.
Right. And because what you all say in the book is like, you don't want people blocked from resources, right? You want them to be able to like do their work independently, to do that work autonomously. And if they're needing permissions or if they're needing, if they have to wait for somebody, that just like creates that jerk again.
100%. I've said 100%. I think I've had my quota. I think that's 3. Cut.
Cut. Just kidding.
Just kidding. Yeah, I think we'll keep going. I'm going to run around in a little bit. It'll be okay.
Alignment.
Yeah.
Alignment means focusing human and organizational resources responsible for developing software to work in the same direction.
Yeah. Well, alignment, and we've had eras. I mean, we had this thing called ITIL. That some people have some battle scars. The younger listeners certainly won't know what the hell I'm talking about. But the idea was that you could have alignment in terms of discussing in terms of delivering. ITIL was basically it was a common language that would enable you to have alignment between the business and IT. Now, that may not have worked in a sense, but that's exactly what we're trying to do. We're trying to have better outcomes. So you want alignment between the user, preventing the jerk that you mentioned, and the software they're using. But certainly, how do you get better alignment between the business and the people building the software? How do you... So, for example, one of the concepts we have of sort of radical delegation is, okay, well, you do want autonomy, but by the same token, you may want the product manager rather than the software developer to be the person that actually decides when the release happens. So you could be shipping software, you could be building software, but whether you're actually releasing that to the entire user cohort, that's a decision for the business rather than the individual developer. So we just wanted to dig into that, the different kinds of alignment. And, I was lucky enough.
And it sits between autonomy, it sits between abundance and autonomy.
It really does, yep. And I think alignment, it was a really interesting conversation earlier with Amazon. So Amazon is on a journey. They're one of the case studies in the book. So Deepak Singh and Claire Liguri, who keep popping up. They're like Zelig of cool things at Amazon, right? So, built out their container story. Now Deepak is working on their developer tools. So there's a new tool, Kiro, that they've got.
Yeah.
But
he's one of the people who helped develop that.
It's his team.
His team.
Okay. And he is a visionary. I mean, he's quite hands-on.
Yeah.
But in talking to them, in terms of the case study, that was really interesting because Amazon, I mentioned the two-pizza team, historically the service, because for them, it is all about, yes, they talk about customer obsession, but it's all about the service teams. Who's delivering the service? They're making the engineering decisions. They're choosing the tooling that will deliver deliver a product, deliver the service to the end user. So there was a sort of it becomes a challenge of alignment, because if different teams are doing different things and making different choices, that can make things more difficult from a software delivery perspective. Different companies have this to varying degrees. Obviously, you take a company like Google, very, very standardized in terms of the entire tooling that anyone that is building software in the company uses. So for Amazon, they sort of had a bit of an alignment problem. Because they had given so much autonomy. So you're trying to balance these things against each other. Anyway, so we've done this case study now. Amazon is currently on a big initiative to have more standardization. So to sort of improve that balancing factor. And the question about how does an organization, and again, abundance sounds great until the economy goes to hell, right?
Right.
That's a very different discussion. But how does an organization balance the needs of finance and the business with developers in order to deliver these services to end users, that these are alignment questions, and organizations need to be thinking about how do they balance that. And so, yeah, I mean, they've got sort of an interesting new framework they're developing internally at Amazon about the cost to serve the customer, right? And this is something that came from their logistics operations, but they're now using it internally as a measure of like, yeah, how do we understand everything that is involved in everything comprised in delivering service to end users? It was just very interesting to me that they are absolutely living this progressive delivery journey in their own right and solving, in fact, some issues. The book was out of date already, you know? I talked to Amazon today and it's like, oh, thanks.
You know, what you say is interesting to me because I was reviewing the keynote from today and there were like multiple hardware announcements. There were multiple model announcements. The just announcements came out over and over again. It's very AWS, right? But it struck me as like, this is all just so new. It's not like, what's interesting about progressive delivery, at least to me, is like there have been repeatable processes developed that are very much used like almost like templates in a way. Where where we are right now is like it's just everything is out there, right? Every possible GPU you can imagine, every model. The models are. I think I was like doing some research, and it looks like AWS went from 100 models last year to 174 this year. You know, so
must be that abundance that I was talking about.
Yeah, so that just strikes me as like what is so interesting about progressive delivery and how it relates to AI, because progressive delivery is basically processes that have been developed over many, many years. And we're kind of in the beginning phase of developing processes for AI workload development that'll take many, many years.
100%. And oh, damn it, I said it again. So cut. So
Cut.
So the thing about one thing that I find is super interesting, and again, this AI explosion. You know, we were already sort of we had already worked on a lot of concepts. The book took a while, you know, and it was sort of interesting when we got the call from IT Rev and they were like, okay, let's go ahead with this. We were kind of thinking, wait, do we need to have a fifth A? Do we need to like really focus on AI because it's having such a profound effect on software delivery? But I think actually what's true is the concepts, as you say, are longer lived. And in fact, if you look at what people are building when they talk about evals, from you're rolling something out, you're not exactly sure how it's going to behave, how the system will behave. You might change the model. What impacts is that going to have? We need to measure that. We need to see its actual behavior. If then think about doing a rollback. All of those things, that's progressive delivery.
Right.
So, and interesting, Thomas Dohmke, when he was running GitHub, I talked to him, and he said, look, you can't do AI-based development without progressive delivery.
Right. And yeah, you talked about that today. The last A in the 4 A's is automation. And automation is the identification and implementation of programmatic processes for repetitive tasks, which follows alignment.
Absolutely. And I mean, what do
100%, I said it.
There you go. Cut. This is what we do. This is what we do in IT. Like, this is what we do in software. You talk about repeatable processes. If we can take that and automate it, that makes us more effective. And I think when you ask the question about what's different or why did you come up with this framework, it was very clear. Look, automation is not new. That is literally the oldest thing in IT.
Or civilization.
Yeah. However, the tooling that we've currently got, and we think about the cloud abundance, we think about this open source availability. The tooling for automation is so much more sophisticated than it ever was. The config as code revolution, I think, really took us forward, and certainly some of those concepts were absolutely essential in being able to do the kinds of things that we're talking about with progressive delivery, where you're able to route traffic, you're able to make changes, you're able to do rollbacks, you're able to understand user behavior, bring that into the process. All of that requires a lot of automation. And so, yeah, that's not That's not new, and certainly it's not going to be that's not new, and certainly it's going to be massively applicable in this AI revolution. But yeah, it's absolutely core to better software delivery. You want to be able to automate those. I mean, yeah, what are we doing here in becoming more effective? It's always about automation.
Well, James, I think that's a good place to conclude, unless there's anything else you'd like to add about the book, about progressive delivery. We've gone through the 4 A's. We were going to say the 5th A, which is AI, but I think we've covered that pretty well. But what I like about what you said about AI, if I may recap, that a lot of the practices we see in AI have their roots in software development life cycles that we see through the work of Edith Harbaugh, for instance, rollbacks and such, right? And so that seems to me like where we're going with progressive delivery is those concepts. You're going to still need versioning of some kind.
Absolutely.
Right.
And look, I mean, if we just think about behaviors, and when you're trying to teach and learn, which is kind of what we're doing with these large language models, and as we've seen again and again and again, sometimes they have behaviors that are really unhelpful socially.
Yeah.
Whether it's the language they use. You got a platform that is perhaps insulting. There are those that would celebrate that. But from I think most organizations that are building software and caring about users actually do they want, if they've got a model that's hallucinating more, they want to roll it back. They want to think about what they're doing. That being intentional absolutely requires, as you say, that these disciplines that we built over decades, over the history of IT in effect, are applicable. So yeah, AI, I think progressive delivery and AI go together extremely well.
Well, James, you want to run off stage, or do you
I didn't do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks a lot. I really appreciate your time, taking your time, and congratulations on the book. And I look forward to the next one. So we'll see what happens.
Thanks so much, Alex.
Yeah. If you like this video, please give us a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more videos like this, you can always subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're on all the major social media platforms. You can always find us at thenewstack.io. We hope to see you soon.